And the Times-Picayune in New Orleans says the lawyer for the man charged with killing a former NFL player wants the suspect's bond reduced. Ronald Gasser was charged with manslaughter in the shooting death of Joe McKnight. He was initially released after the shooting, causing outrage in the community. The sheriff lashed out at people who directed hate-filled messages to officials who he says were only trying to do their job. Jericka Duncan is outside the sheriff's office in Harvey, Louisiana. Jericka, good morning.
Good morning. The sheriff says he and his deputies conducted over 160 interviews and reenacted that crime scene multiple times. He said it was that helped those officials determine what they believe were the moments leading up to the death of Joe McKnight last Thursday.
For those who have criticized the men and women of this organization and the strategy decisions that we made relative to that, tough.
A defensive Sheriff Newell Norman lashed out at critics of his office for waiting 4 days to arrest Ronald Gasser, the man who authorities say admitted to pulling the trigger in the death of Joe McKnight. Gasser was questioned, then released last week, a move that enraged local activists. But on Tuesday, the sheriff read some of the messages directed to city officials who supported his strategy.
It's not fair for him to be called you punk Uncle Tom. We saw you sell out to them, you rat punk.
Can you explain why you felt the need to read some of those foul comments?
We're castigating people that are trying to do the right thing, threatening them. This one's not the worst one.
But does it change anything, you reading those comments, especially?
Yeah, I hope it gets everybody to realize how crazy we're getting.
Investigators now believe the incident began on or near New Orleans' Crescent City connection, where both individuals were driving erratically. At some point, McKnight possibly cut Gasser off. The two men became involved in verbal altercations and were zipping around vehicles before coming to a stop at a red light in the suburb of Tarrytown.
Mr. McKnight exits his car and goes to Mr. Gasser's car. There continues to be a verbal altercation. Mr. Gasser pulls his weapon and fires 3 shots.
CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman says if the case is decided by a jury, Gasser would want jurors to believe he acted in self-defense.
There are many people who might say, hey, wait a minute. The victim wasn't armed. The victim didn't present a threat of death or serious bodily harm.
The sheriff says McKnight did have a gun in the car, but there's no evidence that he actually threatened Gasser with it. Now, here in Louisiana, the use of deadly force is justifiable if someone unlawfully tries to enter a vehicle. As for Gasser, if convicted of manslaughter, he's facing up to 40 years in prison. Gail?
Thank you, Jericka. You asked a question a lot of people were thinking about those tweets. Thank you very much.